First of all, the issue of the protection force. That came up immediately after the conflict began on the 7th of July. And as we watched the situation deteriorating, we in the region decided that we would quickly come together and agree on a way forward, because we were not going to sit back and watch this situation just go from bad to worse. And so we came together and we came up with this communique, the foreign minister's communique. And one of the main pillars of that communique was actually this whole idea of a protection force in Juba. And we immediately started conversations amongst the chiefs of defense forces to see what was possible in the shortest period of time. So in terms of when should it be there, I think sooner rather than later. But we moved out of Nairobi to Kigali with that communique, which was then adopted by the heads of state in Kigali, and then to Addis, where it was again reinforced. And so after that, I think what happened was basically complementary to what the region had done already. The Security Council resolution was complementary to what we had done as a region, and the issue, and I think that's really, really important to underline, that the whole issue of a protection force was brought up by the region and did not come from the Security Council in New York. And if you look at it from that angle, right, then you begin to understand why it must come in and why it must be deployed. And so since then, we've had additional meetings of the chiefs of defense forces. They're looking at modalities in which this can be done, and how many can go in and when they can go in. We've also talked about, and today we discussed that as well, about the gradual deployment of these troops.
With a transitional government that is now committed to the full implementation of the peace agreement, and that has already begun to implement that peace agreement, that a force with a presence in Juba itself, which is where most of the violence took place during the last round, will be able to guarantee access for everybody, and that includes people trying to prevent the violence. What happened in the last round was that it was very difficult for people to move between the warring parties. The airport became at risk. The government institutions, the UN quarters itself, the UN compound at one or two points was under attack. Our embassy itself had rounds going over it and around it, and we spent quite a bit of time concerned about the safety of the diplomatic personnel that are hosted in Juba. So the effort here is to really create a capacity for the process to go forward in Juba, which will reduce the need to have presence in other parts of the country, because you have a working governance, because you have people implementing the peace agreement. And then there would be a series of cantonments which would begin to house people with weapons in a way that begins to separate them from the general population. Now, all of this depends, obviously, on the efficiency with which the process will be implemented. But I think Amina would agree with me that today there was a clear agreement about the immediate implementation process continuing, and about next steps of meetings that will take place in order to guarantee some momentum builds up, and particularly in an acceptance of an understanding of what the definition of the protective force is. Let me be clear again. I said it, I think, in my opening comments. This force is not an intervention force. It is there to protect innocent civilians, to protect people's access to and egress from Juba, and to be able to permit the people working on the issue of peace and its implementation to be able to move around without fear